Welcome, everybody, to another Earth Day celebration produced and sponsored by A Better World. Always so pleased and honored to have all of you joining us this evening. A little over 2.5 hours of purposeful speaking and dialogue, meaningful ceremonies, opening and closing the event, and beautiful music. This year, we are focusing on water. Water as the basis of life itself. Water, which constitutes most of our bodies, some 70 to 80%, and water, which constitutes most of our planet. Water is something we need to survive and to thrive, and it is what we swim and play in to get healthy and strong. When we look into it, water reflects us. When we experience our emotions, the wonderful ones and the sadder ones, water has been shown through the work of Dr. Emoto, Dean Radin, and others, that it reflects those emotions in beautiful geometric patterns. In short, it really could be said that we are water and water is us. It is also said historically, poetically, and archetypally that water is love. So that is also very good news for us all. While we honor Earth Day every year, we also know that every day is really Earth Day. Every day we show gratitude for her and for our being alive. As we take care of ourselves, so too nature is always taking care of us. It is obviously our responsibility to take care of her, our mother. And we need to do this on every level to stop polluting and extracting, or as Hippocrates said, do no harm. We need to do this by the way we treat our oceans, our water, our soil, and our air. We need to do this through our actions in taking care of water in all its forms, taking care and restoring our soil. And we need to take care of the planet also through our policy and our legislation. In every way we can conceive, we have to teach our children to take care of our planet from an early age. As they say, it's the only one we've got. We are just emerging from a very powerful week in which people all over the world have been celebrating together in rituals of Passover and Easter, which is literally today, which is perfect in light of the idea of rebirth and resurrection of our planet through, that is, a lot of the work that we here today are doing. We are the ones working to rebirth and to resurrect Gaia and the ecosystem from the harms and insults she has endured for a very long time now. And we are dedicated to showing her respect and love. And at the very end of this week, at the end of Easter Sunday, in fact, our beloved Pope Francis, champion of the people, environmentalist par excellence, and fierce advocate for caretaking the planet as part of God's creation, passes and leaves this dimension, leaving even more for us to do. No one has seen a pope more outspoken about protecting our planet. May we honor him with this evening, with all that we are doing. Our speakers and shamans represent this respect and love for Gaia, our musicians, Pachamama, through their life work, inventing ways to help to restore the oceans and soil, our fresh waterways, and beneath it all, our relationship to the mother that has brought us all life forward and sustains us. It's a serious, heavy lift to detoxify from all the pollution and extraction over these past many centuries, but it is happening. And the speakers, musicians, and shamanic teachers this evening are all part of the solution. So it's with pleasure and excitement that I want to welcome all of them and all of you to tonight's Earth Day celebration. We hope that you can stay for the duration, hang out, but to let you know, it will be posted on our YouTube site afterwards, A Better World TV show. So if you stay for the night, you can go there to see it a second time. Now to begin, we'll start with our dear Itzhak Beery.
So it's a great pleasure and honor to be here with you all, the guardian of the mama, the people who devote their life to maintain the balance between nature and humans and all livings. It is that the essence of all of it is the respect that we have for the land that gives us so much or everything. So it's I'd like to start maybe with a call or invocation to summon the spirit of the mountains, the volcanic mountains in Ecuador. These are beautiful valley or the dawn of civilizations, where civilization began. They're surrounded by three beautiful mountains, Imbabura, Cotacachi, and Muhanda, that form those beautiful, rich land where the Mama provide everything for the indigenous people there. And so the top of the mountains there are pools, or the spirit of the mountains that sits there and guarding us. And so this invocation is calling all of them to come here to honor them, to protect us, to give us the power that we need to be the guardian of the earth. And I can't not mention the lakes and the rivers that are come from those mountains, and the snow that are on the cap of the mountains that are providing us with the water that flow into the Amazon. And so this relationship that we have with the mountains and the rivers and the Amazon is so important for all of us to remember that it is not just the mountain, it's the mountain that provides us with a place to unload the water that comes from the sky and flow into the Amazon, that give us all this oxygen that we need, all the beautiful medicine that we have. So close your eyes, and I'm going to call on to the spirit of the mountain. Moyori Yeja Moyori Yeja Hawakita Imbabura Kutakachi Muhandita Sakwan Tokyo Kantasho Moyori Yeja Hawakita Moyori Yeja Hawakita Imbabura Kutakachi Muhandita Sakwan Tokyo Kantasho Hey, Shamu Yakumama, Shamu Pachamama, Shamu Mamakia, Shamu Tata Inti. Oh, ooh, yeah. 30 years ago, my first trips to Ecuador, I had that amazing opportunity to participate in a plant medicine ceremony with the Shuar people. And during that ceremony, the spirit of the Amazon came and took me in her wings and flew me over the Amazon and made me promise. And that promise I still keep 30 years later. It is to protect the Amazon and the people who live there, the wise people there, not just them, but to keep their wisdom and teaching for the benefit of all other people who already forgot the connection to the land, to the trees, to the cycle of life. And I'd like to offer that idea that this is not a trend, this is not just a vision, this is a commitment, a life commitment in every day to remember what makes us human, to remember what makes us one with the earth, that the more we give to the earth, the more the earth gives us. And for that, I want to thank the earth, the mama, for all the gifts that in my short life on this earth, walking on her skin, I was so grateful to receive. And it's not easy being a guardian of the earth. It is a commitment, and every day, with every breath, with every action that we take, it has to be a conscious decision not to fall into the mainstream propagandas and commercialism, to find your own path and to stick to it. And teach that to your children and to your grandchildren, because they're going to inherit this land after we pass on. So I want to thank you all for allowing me to open up this beautiful day of Mother Earth, Pachamama. Ooh-yay-yay.
Thank you, Itzhak, so much. Toda rabah, shalom. Appreciate it. I bet no one has ever met an Israeli shaman before. So it's my first.
Let me remind you that the Israeli or the Jews were shamanic tradition.
Yeah.
We are basically going back, honoring the earth or the mother or the feminine energy that was taken away from us by other forces, that we have to return to it. This is the time. This is the time of the condor and the eagle, of the prophecy of the Inca, that the two forces, the masculine and the feminine, can fly in the same sky in a dance of harmony and cooperation. It doesn't have to be either or. It has to be together.
It has to be together, actually.
And we are seeing it now in actually in front of our eyes, how the two forces are now still fighting. They still don't find ways to cooperate together, but the tide is coming. The feminine energy is coming back, and we have to, male and female, whatever gender we are looking at ourselves, usher it with open heart, and knowing that it's not easy for some male to give up their power, but the feminine is going to win. The heart.
That's a perfect segue into our next speaker, a beautiful, intelligent woman who embodies the feminine and is a fine blend of what we say in the ancient Chinese language, yin and yang. So, Itzhak, toda rabah. Thank you so much, my friend. Really appreciate your contribution. Jill Stein is our next speaker, Green Party candidate for president in the last several election cycles, has honored us with her presence to speak. She's been a long life activist, environmentalist, and she's been towing the very difficult road of entering a very male dominant political structure. And she's going to speak. So, Jill Stein, please, if you would, come
Thank
forward.
you. Thank you. Are you hearing me okay?
Beautifully.
Great. All right. Terrific. Thank you, Itzhak, for your beautiful words. Thank you for bringing the spirit here among us so strong. And thank you, Mitchell, so much for convening this really wonderful group of visionaries. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell a little bit of my story, coming from my experience as a mother and as a medical doctor, waking up really to the terrible crisis of our health in this era of what can we say, of such destruction,
Conflict,
conflict,
destruction.
destruction, exploitation, you name it, just crisis after crisis. And from my point of view as a mother and a medical doctor, my training took place as we had new rising epidemics of chronic disease, of asthma, of childhood cancers, of the obesity epidemic, and much else. And I saw how much suffering, needless suffering, we have as this destruction of the planet feeds back to all of us because the water, the air, the food, the day-to-day products of our lives incorporate that energy and are causing a great toll in our health and our survival of our ecosystems and our social systems and our health. And I went to work as a medical doctor to try to alleviate some of this crisis, to address the needless pollution in our coal plants, to work in the area of policy, to bring real solutions that are here, available now, affordable in a grand scheme of what the actual costs are, including costs that are forever being externalized as if they're not taking place. But in the big picture, there is so much that we can do and that we must do that provide solutions for our health, for our economy, for our planet. And what I found was that over and over again, we could have large movements, large coalitions of public health, of racial justice, of labor, of child health. We could get together in enormous numbers, but time and time again, the money flowing into the political system through its inherent corruption in a political, and I use that word as legalized corruption. I'm sure there's illegal corruption happening too, but
Yes.
even just from the legalized corruption, we have a system which is bought and paid for. And so time after time, victory would be snatched away from us in order to pay back campaign donors. So a wonderful thing happened. We all got together, those of us who were working to phase out incinerators, to move to sustainable recycling programs, to clean up our air, to move to a pesticide-free, sustainable food system. All these, motherhood and apple pie. We got together to clean up our political system. And we actually passed by a huge majority through a voter referendum, a clean elections law to provide public financing for candidates who would forego big money contributions from corporations and the wealthy. So us candidates, at the time I was not a candidate, but I mean real people could have a way to be part of our political system and to offer voters a choice of things like healthcare as a human right for everyone, affordable housing, rent control, free public higher education, the things that there's enormous public support for, demilitarizing our foreign policy so that we can put our dollars into the things, the real human needs that we need here at home and abroad. We passed a campaign finance system by a huge 2-to-1 margin through a statewide referendum. And then what happened was a real wake-up call. After we the people passed it, our legislature, dominated by the Progressive Democratic Party, overwhelmingly repealed clean campaign funding. They repealed it on a voice vote, no less, so no one would be held accountable. And that to me said, whoa, we really need a change in our politics. If we're going to fix the crisis of our healthcare, the crisis of endless war and militarism, if we're going to fix the crisis of the climate, we need to also fix our political system. And above all, in so many words, we need to demand democracy. And what I want to say right off the bat here, because I know the time is going to slip away really fast, what I really want to say is that it's so important to reject the propaganda, as Itzhak was also saying. It's really important to reject the propaganda of powerlessness, the propaganda that tells us that we are just cogs in a wheel that's much bigger than us, that the forces arrayed against us are in control. And, I say this at a time of great sorrow, a time of great pervasive crisis, a time when we are watching an all-out war on our environment, on our healthcare system, on public services, on Medicaid, on Medicare, on Social Security, a military that has absolutely gone off the charts, so that we have basically lost the power of international law, of diplomacy. And it's not just one party. And I think it's really important to remember that this is a corruption throughout the political system. And I'm not here to advocate for any political party, but rather for a politics that's of, by, and for the people, that's not bought and paid for. And we are so often talked out of our power by this notion that, oh, it's hopeless, that we basically cannot overcome the forces arrayed against us of the military-industrial complex, or big pharma, or the real estate industry, of the weapons industry, and so on, that we're hopeless, that they're in control. It's so important to remember that that is not the case. I'm going to show a couple of slides. I'm going to share my screen just because it'll help me talk through some realities that I think help us. These are realities that should lift our spirit and that should enable us to feel our empowerment. So that we know, number one, we're not alone, and number two, that in fact, the time has never been better to stand up and to actually demand real democracy. So let me see if I can just quickly share here. And I know, what do I have left? 5 minutes? Is that about?
Yeah, something like that, a little bit more.
All right, let me see if I.
No, the points you're making are so important for this august gathering, Jill, of the propaganda of powerlessness. Such a beautiful way to put it, and poignant. So please, this is important.
Thank you. And let me see if I can. All right, just give you a little bigger screen here to see. Are you seeing this okay?
Yes.
All right. So
everyone else?
Everybody seeing this? Okay, great. In a nutshell, to heal the planet, we've got to heal our democracy. And, when people say, well, what's a doctor doing here? I explain, I moved from clinical medicine to political medicine because it's the mother of all illnesses. If we want to fix what's literally killing us on a massive scale, we need to heal our political system. This is just to make the point we're not alone. we're seeing, this broken democracy. It never was a very complete democracy. It wasn't, when the Constitution, basically gave the vote to landholders and counted African Americans as 3/5 of a human being. This was never
And women.
Yes, and banned women. Yeah. Yes. So we've been very challenged from the start, in a country founded on the genocide of indigenous people and then African Americans, So we have lots of karma to deal with here. We didn't get off to such a great start, but there still were amazing things about a country that actually had a constitution and a Bill of Rights and a guaranteed, right to free speech and to a right to protest. And a right to due process before the law and so on. So that's our broken democracy right now. And because democracy is kind of the master switch here, and because the master switch is not working, we have these kind of 4 general areas of crisis: endless war verging on nuclear, climate collapse, part of the larger environmental collapse that we are witnessing before our eyes. That doesn't mean we can't turn it around, but just to understand what the forces arrayed against us, because I must say for myself, as I came to understand the incredible urgency of the moment, it really inspires, urgent action. It not only inspires urgent action, but it also inspires collaboration. And we cannot do this alone. None of us can do this alone. Solidarity and collaboration is the name of the game. Crushing inequality is part of this picture, and rising authoritarianism and fascism, which of course is extremely frightening in terms of what's going on right now. Some of the drivers here, you can give it whatever name you want. You can call it capitalism or neo-feudalism or rapacious oligarchy or corporatism. These are part of the system in which we are embedded and in which we struggle. I want to quote here Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis from turn of the last century, where he said, we can have democracy in this country or we can have great wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we can't have both. And I think, we're seeing this right now so powerfully. Just this makes the point, okay, this is money in 2024 flowing into our elections. That was about, over 16 billion. If you look down here on this, the labels down at the bottom, what you can see here is that each year it's growing, and we are in this very poisoned system right now. And if I can share one just astounding factoid, which is that in this last election, the money was, it was quite comparable actually to 2020, a little bit larger in the presidential. This looks at presidential and congressional. Fine points here. You get the big idea.
Yes.
But where did Trump's money come from? I want to make this point. Almost 50% of his money came from 10 donors. That tells you in a nutshell why we have such an incredibly skewed system. That's documented, by the way, in Open Secrets, which is a nonprofit. It's, on the web. You can Google it. 44% of Trump's money came from 10 donors. And, that's, of course, Elon Musk. It's also Marian Adelson, who was number 2, a major not a peace advocate in the Israeli Gaza, tragedy, this ongoing tragedy. So, we see Donald Trump, who's basically conducting payback right now. A lot came from the fossil fuel industry as well. And it's not as though the Republicans are the only offender here. This is also very true with Democrats. Kamala Harris had more billionaire donors than ever on record. Trump had fewer. They had much deeper pockets. The point is, this is a whole system which is very corrupted, and we're kind of fighting against the grain here unless we also, we need to invoke all the power of the spirit world, But we also need to work together in the pragmatic and practical world. And those who say, oh, I don't want to touch politics, it's too corrupt. I agree, it is extremely corrupt. But if we don't, fight for integrity and decency in that world, then unfortunately we basically stay the course and we don't have time now. Our time is short, and it's really important for us to work together. I want to quote three people briefly here. If the question is, how do we take our democracy back? The answers I find are very much embodied in the statements of three very powerful people. Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist, a former self-emancipated enslaved person who became such a powerful proponent to end slavery. He had this beautiful quote, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will." That was true, at the time of emancipation. It is still true now. We need to make demands. We need to stand up and work together. This doesn't happen by wishing for it. Power has a stranglehold on the instruments of power. So it really does take power building and collaboration. Alice Walker, the novelist and poet, who said that the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. We do have it, and it's time for us to use it. And then above all, Malcolm X, who said so succinctly and powerfully that we're not outnumbered, we're out-organized. And if you look at even the referendums that passed in the last election, which had a Republican majority, referendums were passing all over the country in support of public education, in support, rather than privatization, in support of women's reproductive rights and the right to access abortion, on behalf of a living wage and raising the minimum wage in somewhere around, I want to say 50, 60 municipalities or states or counties over the course of the last year. In so many ways, people are also calling for a Green New Deal in a majority of polls. What we hear from the, Itzhak mentioned inside the box or inside the, system as usual, inside the mainstream, world, we hear basically the talking points to stay the course and to keep us mired where we are. But once you get outside of that box, in fact, 1 out of every 3 voters did not vote. More than 1 out of every 3 voters did not vote in the last election. 1 out of 3, that is a huge number. And for those, who did vote, they were told they had 2 choices and that was it. But in fact, over a third of voters right now is saying, we just cannot, countenance this. So do not let power talk you out of your power. And whether you look at the specific concrete solutions or the potential to actually build on public opinion, there is enormous power right now to demand and then to actually implement and build an America and a world that works for all of us, that puts people, planet, and peace over profit. And the power to create that world is in our hands if we stand up and demand it. Thank you all so much.
Beautiful.
You do.
Thank you so much, Jill Stein. That was so beautifully put and so meaningful and so important for these times we're living in, which are so troubled. And even if our own personal lives have a good measure of love and beauty in them, when we just cast our eye out to the world around us on virtually every level, we see the tension and the conflict that you were speaking of. And the salient point I feel you made of many is about our own powerlessness and not to believe the story that we are eminently powerful, as Mandela was known to say as well. So thank you very much for also to continue the theme of water. You've been swimming upstream for a long time, and I just want to honor and acknowledge you for your readiness and willingness to do that. So thank you. So now, talking about water, we're going to swim over to near Alaska, where our next speaker is coming from. Well, he's originally, I think, maybe from Canada. Yes, Russ George, ocean scientist. But from the messages I've gotten, it looks like he is in some remote area of Alaska. So his video may not be able to come in because he's out in the woods, but at least he can speak with us. And just a couple of words about Russ. He's been doing work in the space of ocean restoration, and it's formidable. And he worked with a little island off the coast of British Columbia, as I recall, some years back, and got stunning results in his mineralizing the ocean. And I'll let him tell the rest of the story, but it's phenomenal. And it just reminds us that all of us here are bringing real solutions to the table. Itzhak on the level of the spirit world and making contact with them to get the power and the support of the ancestors, if you will. Jill Stein, who is working against an enormous corporate political infrastructure that leaves no room for anyone else, especially a woman. And she is literally fighting upstream. She's done it for 3 election cycles. I've interviewed her for each of them, and I'm a great support of green. And we use at A Better World the motto of the Green Party of people and planet before profit. And profit is good. It's okay, but not if it's going to be hurting people or planet. So on that note, my good friend and colleague, Russ George, are you with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Wonderful.
Oh, good. At least you can hear me. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for having me here. And I'm here in Kodiak on Kodiak Island in the Gulf of Alaska.
Oh, wonderful.
Which is a unique town. You know, the Alaska provides more than 60% of the seafood in the entire USA. And Kodiak, which you can't get to by car, there's no roads. It's on an island out here in the middle of the Pacific, the North Pacific. It's the biggest fishing port in Alaska. So in every sense, this is the heart of America's fishing industry, seafood industry.
Mm-hmm.
The most important community in that industry. And I'm here at the invitation of a bunch of my of some people in the Alutiiq and Sunak tribes here who are desperate to see if we can bring back the fish. I wondered can you see is my share screen function working?
It should be, yeah.
I clicked on
yes,
it.
we can see that.
Okay. Well, that's a big, you can see a big dust cloud, which isn't something that we have, which is blowing out of Alaska. But, what's happened here in Alaska in the fishing, in the ocean, in the fishing world is that the high and rising CO2 from humanity's efforts has been changing the environment of the world. And most people think that it's creating climate change, but it's producing 10 times as much ocean change as climate change at present, right? And that's it's a staggering result. We've lost more than 50% of the ocean pasture, the primary productivity of the North Pacific in the last several decades, many decades. And put that in context, in the Bering Sea, we have had a collapse of the giant crabs of the Bering Sea, the king crabs and snow crabs and things, and it has been said to be a great mystery, although I'm pretty sure we have a handle on it. But we've lost 11 billion crabs in the Bering Sea. And it's not really fishing, because in a really great fishing year, we catch 30 million. So maybe we catch 5% of the population. So when we lose 20 times, we've lost 20 times the crabs that we've caught in the Bering Sea. And there's a complete consensus of agreement that the Bering Sea crabs have been starving to death, right? And so why are they starving to death? Same thing goes with the salmon. We have the giant king salmon of Alaska, that there's now a position paper in the works in the federal government to have it declared an endangered species. And most of the regions of Alaska are now under such restriction. The king salmon have disappeared to such an extent. So for instance, in the Bering Sea, in the Yukon and river districts of the northern Bering Sea, the native people who always had salmon to catch to feed themselves and sustain their lives are not allowed to catch a single fish, not even for food, right? This year, and no commercial catches are going on. And so we've lost the salmon, and everybody agrees we're sending plenty of baby salmon out into the ocean, but they're just not surviving, and they're not coming back. So they're literally starving to get to death out in the ocean. That's becoming less and less full of food. And things like the pollock, if you've eaten fish sticks or a fish sandwich or surimi or many things, pollock is a form of cod. The size of pollock has reduced to 50% of its former size, right, in the past 50 years or so. So the pollock haven't shrunk because of overfishing. They've shrunk because there's nothing to eat in size. And the story goes on and on. And the reason why fisheries is collapsing comes from this picture on your screen. That the ocean is a series of pastures, and in those pastures grows the ocean grass, which is called phytoplankton. And everybody understands pastures on land. It's land that grows grass, right? And the grass grows in mineral soil. And if the rain falls, the grass is green and healthy and lush. And if the rain doesn't fall, you have a terrible drought. And the grass dries up and goes away. And the livestock that depends on that pasture for life is never said to have been over-harvested or abused, because when the pasture has turned from a lush green grassland into an empty desert, right? We know that it's the disappearance of the grass. Well, the ocean works exactly the same. The ocean is full of ocean grass, the phytoplankton. It lives in water, so it doesn't need another drop of rain to fall. But it doesn't have any minerals, because it's the ocean is many miles deep, and most of the ocean is hundreds of miles from shore. The ocean's vast. It's 72% of this blue planet. So it's far from land and minerals. So what keeps the ocean grass alive is dust falling from the air instead of rain falling. Well, this picture is of the Chinese dust storms, which many of you might have read stories about in the years, and the dust blows out of Mongolia and China, provides the minerals, including tiny amounts of iron. And that's the dust fall, the mineral drops that keep the grass of the oceans alive. Well, in the past 50 years, you can see a chart here, we've lost 80% of the dust blowing out of China has disappeared, because high CO2 makes grass grow on land. And when there's lots of grass growing on land, it covers the ground. We call it good ground cover. And more grass growing means less dust blowing in the wind, right? Well, sounds good if you're a soil conservationist, right? And you want to conserve the soil, but it's a yin and yang relationship. That those minerals weren't going to waste. They are the absolutely most vital substance for the world's oceans. And so we're down to only 20% of the most vital, important substance for the health of the oceans. And as a result, we have now almost 50 years of the most horrific drought occurring on this planet, which is a drought of mineral dust that's turning our once green oceans into clear blue deserts. And of course, along with that, the fish have disappeared. And everybody wants to say, well, it's some bad fisherman, that's doing that, or it's some source of pollution, right? We always want to point the finger of blame at some few amongst us that we can identify as villains, right? We don't want to all take a share of equal blame for emitting CO2, right? Which has been growing grass in Asia, suppressing the dust and turning the oceans into clear blue deserts. So it's a shocking thing, but we know that we can restore it. Back in I started working on this back in 1989, and then I moved into the work. Let me just see. I'm going to switch a slide here. And so, one of the greatest ocean scientists who ever lived was and the only man that NASA honors on their website as the greatest NASA scientist. And they have a special website at NASA called On the Shoulders of Giants. And it's dedicated to Professor John Martin from California, who, rest in peace, he died in the early 1990s. But just before he had died, he'd completed a lifetime of studying the role of dust feeding the oceans and the iron in that dust, and how the ocean productivity is utterly dependent on this mineral dust fall. And I had good fortune of meeting him, and he tutored me on this in 1989, 1990 sort of time range. And he'd done all the great ocean science, and he said, look at at the time in 1989, he gave a great talk. He said, look, global warming's the greatest problem facing the Earth, right? Facing the planet. And, this is long before climate change became a prominent topic, right? Long before we renamed global warming into climate change. And he says, but CO2 that's causing global warming is regulated almost entirely by the oceans, by plant life in the oceans, right? The oceans manage, not a mere 50% of the CO2 like most terrestrial scientists would like us to believe, but it manages 90% of the planet's CO2. And so John Martin said, well, the ocean's depleted in dust. The dust is disappearing, as that former chart showed, from starting in 1950, we started losing the dust. And what happened in 1950? Well, that was post-World War II in the massive industrialization of the world. And that's when we really started pumping CO2 into the global atmosphere. And that CO2 really started growing grass everywhere. And as the grass grew, the dust disappeared from the planet. And it didn't matter for those of us living on land. We were happy to see the dust disappear, but if you were ocean life, it was absolute horror, right? And remains so to today. It's worsening every day. So, here's a slide that shows a picture of a volcano on the left called Kasatochi that erupted in Alaska in the 2008. The volcanoes in the Aleutians are kind of rare. Mostly the ash blows to the north. This one, some of the ash blew to the southeast. It dusted the ocean pasture of the Gulf of Alaska and produced a vast blooming pasture, a Garden of Eden came to where I replaced the desert that was growing. And on the right, there's a picture of a dust storm that blew across out of Australia a number of years ago. It was made all the news. It shrouded Sydney, Australia, so you couldn't see across the street. The dust made it all the way to New Zealand. And as it entered into the Pacific, that dust made the ocean turn from blue to green. And we had record fish catches thereafter. And this is what it looks like when you do it. Well, I followed in the ocean science community, George Bush, H.W. Bush, first George Bush, heard about John Martin's work where he said, if we give back a little bit of dust to the ocean, we can restore the oceans to their historic levels of health and abundance. And they will take care of most of the problem of CO2 that's producing global warming. And so it takes a remarkable little chore. You throw a little bit of red, muddy water into the ocean. The picture on the right of the blue water versus the green water is basically 48 hours. The ocean turns from clear blue to a gorgeous emerald green, and life returns to the ocean. Where in our large experiment that I did with a small native people's village of 853 souls, children, women, and men, all total 853. And they were good friends of mine, and I'd worked with them for years. And they came to me and said, well, we're the people of the salmon, but the salmon are gone. Can you bring back the fish by replenishing the dust? So we took 100 tons of natural mineral dust, iron-rich mineral dust, into the Gulf of Alaska. We spread that 100 tons over what turned out to be about 50,000 square kilometers, 12 million acres of territory, not a small. That's called mesosize in ocean science. So that's a middle-sized bloom. The plankton bloom that started converting CO2 into more plankton into ocean life. And it worked phenomenally, right? The very next year, the catch of pink salmon in Alaska, which was going to be one of the biggest catches ever, was forecast to be 50 million fish. But following our work to restore the salmon pasture in the Gulf of Alaska, instead of 50 million pink salmon being caught in Alaska the very next year, they had to stop fishing after catching 225 million. And they only stopped fishing at 225 million because there was no longer any capacity on shore to catch another fish, right? And those extra 175 million pink salmon were joined by legions of other forms of salmon, by hundreds of thousands of seabirds, by huge populations of whales. Exactly one orca whale gestation cycle following when the time when the fish came back to shore. In the North Pacific, we had the largest orca baby boom on record because good maternal nutrition grows healthy babies, right? So everything grew. And it did that because, and the math is the science is intense and difficult to do, but it reduces to pretty simple math. Well, the plankton pasture that our village of 853 people, and we paid to do it, and we didn't pay alone, but we had the National Research Council of Canada supported the project, and the federal government of Canada, provincial government of Canada, First Nations governments in Canada vetted and reviewed the project for 3.5 years before we were given permission to proceed. Well, the $72,000 worth of iron-rich mineral dust produced this incredible return of life. And it only, because every form of life is carbon-based on this planet, it repurposed 100 million tons of carbon dioxide into ocean life, right? And that carbon dioxide was in fact the alternative was those 100 million tons of carbon dioxide were killing ocean life. So it was a great project. So now I'm in Alaska at the invitation of the Alutiiq and Sunak and a number of other native groups, as well as the borough of Kodiak and the state of Alaska, to introduce the fact that there is a dire ocean and fisheries emergency taking place in America. It's worst here in Alaska because the NOAA reported last year that the loss of $1.8 billion of fisheries catch a year before last resulted in a $4.3 billion loss to the US economy and the loss of 38,000 permanent jobs. So I'm saying, well, if that doesn't define and it's been happening year after year after year and worsening every year. So if that's not a natural disaster, I don't know what you could define as a natural. So we're asking, so the native people in the local municipal government and the state government, we're all going to declare an ocean emergency, and we're asking President Trump to declare a national ocean emergency. And under that emergency, like we do for all natural, disasters in this country, we get to work. The firemen are all called out to go fight the fire. The police are all called out to evacuate people from the path of the hurricane. We drop what we're doing and we reassign the resources that we have to tend to the emergency. And so that's what we're hoping and expecting will happen. And we're quite confident that that if we work on this emergency for 3 summers in a row, we will prove that we will have restored the ocean to its historic level of health and productivity, and brought back the fish, brought back the economy, brought back 38,000 minimum jobs, maybe several times that many jobs.
And the entire ecosystem, actually. Russ, I have to interrupt you here. Sure. Fascinating as this is, an incredible solution that you bring forward. We have, a still roster of guests to come on, sure. But this is an extraordinary contribution. And I want to just thank you so much for this presentation and walking us through this lifelong work that you've been involved in, and that I've had the privilege of knowing you and sitting down with you for a better world and talking about it. In fact, I put my interview with Russ into the chat for everybody. So if you want more, or just go to a Better World TV show on YouTube and you can get it. But Russ George, thank you so much for your dedication to cleaning up the ocean pastures and the dead zones all over the planet. And I feel that, well, what do we say? From dust to dust?
Well, go to our website, opralaska.com, to read a little bit more on this. And I'll end with one little anecdote. Does anybody know why there's a tuna fish on the flag of Los Angeles? Right? The flag of Los Angeles has a tuna fish on it because in 1950 and 1960, it was the tuna fishing and tuna processing capital of the world.
Oh,
but the ocean pastures of California were the first to die off from the decline of the Asian dust, and the tuna disappeared. 28 canneries and processing plants, tens of thousands of fishing boats, hundreds of thousands of fishermen ended their life with the California ocean. So the California has an old ocean emergency that almost nobody remembers because it's been so long that we don't have fish in California. But we're going to bring back. We're asking the Governor Newsom to declare a California ocean and fisheries emergency, so that he and we can get out to sea and get to work and immediately begin to use nature-based methods to restore the ocean back to health, and it will work, and it will bring the fish back inside of 3 to 5 years.
Fantastic. Russ George, thank you again so much. And if anybody has a spare 20 million, let me know, because we want to fund his work around the world.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for letting me
Absolutely,
tell you
Russ.
all the story. Right.
Great to hear you. Sorry we couldn't see you.
If you're here in
but good to
Kodiak
see
on
you.
Wednesday night, you can come to the Sunak Bingo Hall for our ocean restoration bingo night.
Well, there you'll get your 20
Okay.
million.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Thanks again.
Okay.
Wow, you see what I mean? We're swirling with solutions. It's very true. It's very real. And I am telling you all that the people on this evening's Earth Day each are packed with real solutions. And that was part of the gate of entry in tonight, because I really wanted people who I know have what we need to turn this ship, may I continue the water metaphor, around. And now, talking about water and ships and beauty, we have the angelic, the magnificent Kristin Hoffmann, who has been with us every year for many years now, gracing us, honestly gracing us with her singing. She's a composer. She is an internationally known composer and singer and performer. And it's with great pleasure and honor that my dear friend Kristin Hoffmann is joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you, Mitchell. It's so wonderful to be here. That was extraordinarily hopeful, Russ. I really appreciated understanding that the green of the ocean could come back to us with 3 to 5 years of focused effort. So beautiful.
Yes.
So, as you know, I feel like after Russ's presentation, I should almost be sharing Song for the Ocean, which I have shared at many past Earth Day events. And I've gone all over the world singing my Song for the Ocean with many, many, many people of all ages. And yet, I'm going to go to a little bit different vibe and mood. And we're going to zoom out to more of like the cosmic realms of Mother Earth tonight.
Beautiful.
This is a new piece as of the last couple of months called Maravati, Song of the New Earth. And this began as an invitation from a great visionary named Adele Lambourne. And she called me up, and she's been seeing into the realms for her whole life. And in other realms, she has always known the divine spirit origin of Mother Earth as Maravati. And she explained to me, Ma is, she said, I want to get the essence of this. Maravati is a cosmic sound, vibration, and language. It is ancient and eternal. Each syllable is a sacred tone that creates. Ma is the vibration of the element of water. So really tune into the Ma tonight. The mother of life on this planet. Ra is the holy vibration of the solar light. Va is the power element of air. And T indicates divine feminine in creation. So all of these sounds, elements together equate to life as we know it with Mother Earth. And there have been thousands of people syncing up and actually going out into nature and playing the song and singing along, because there's very few words, so it's easy to sing along, into nature. And another sync is happening tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. So if you feel inspired after tonight, take the song into nature, sing it to your favorite lake or tree or body of water or to the ocean. And the last time we had over 1,000 people join us at once, and it's really exciting to see the song going to work. So now, here we go.
Didn't you sing this at our Bruce Lipton event in August?
I didn't. I think you heard it at Elizabeth Sartoris's memorial.
That's what it was.
Because this didn't come into being until the new year. This is a 2025 birthing. And it has already
Because
really
that's
been
right. You're
embraced.
absolutely right. It was Elizabeth Sahtouris,
Yes.
evolutionary biologist, very dear friend who passed on.
And
into
so
some-
also just calling in Elizabeth and her great work. And
Yes.
I'm sure she is in the cosmic realms also floating with
listening
Madhavati.
in.
And listening
I know
to
she
her.
watches me. She's like,
I'm sure she
what's
does.
next,
She's keeping
Mitchell?
tabs on you, Mitchell. And beloved Bruce too, I'm sure.
Yep.
Anyway, here we go. So just really letting yourself tune in, and just as you're listening, think of what are some of your favorite memories on there. Feel yourself there. Let yourself return to that innocence of a child appreciating and discovering this mother planet for the first time. And as you're feeling that, just send healing love. Okay? Here we go. It's kind of a neoclassical realm. And if Mitchell, if you could mute your mic
Yes.
while the music is going on, that would be great. Let the journey begin. Blessings, blessings.
Kristin Hoffmann, thank you so deeply much. That is awesome. You've created an emanation of beauty all around us. I don't know if I can say this publicly, but I love you.
I love you. It's so beautiful every time we get to weave and dance, and just so appreciate you, Mitchell, and the great spaces you hold, and the people that you call in so consciously into really deep and profound conversation. Much needed spaces. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank
And
you.
remember, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, if
That's
you feel
right.
inspired, go play Maravati to the elements and just send your love.
Beautiful. 11 o'clock Pacific.
11 o'clock Pacific. You got
Very
it.
good. Thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
beautiful
you.
heart with us.
Thank you.
It's just what we needed. In between the richness of information, we needed your magnificent music. So perfect. Thanks again. So now we will continue on. This time we just looked at ocean restoration with Russ George, and now we're going to look at soil restoration and building soil with Ed Huling. Ed is a nutritionist originally, then become a soil scientist, worked at the USDA for a year doing research, looking at the relationship of healthy soil to nutrient-dense food, and made the interesting commonsensical connection between them, which was not so actually embraced by his colleagues at the USDA. And that inspired him to go off on his own. And for years, he has been developing a soil amendment and a way of understanding how the work he's doing and creating healthy soil on this level will lead to a true reversal of the carbon sequestration that we so deeply need. So without further ado, Ed Huling, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you all, and thanks to the speakers who came before. Very inspiring, and it's a hard axe to follow, but let me give it a shot. So,
sure.
As you mentioned, I was preoccupied for many years with the connection between soil and the nutritional value of food. It took about 15 years to learn how to restore soil to consistently improve food nutritional value as to what has been lost over the last, let's say, hundreds of years as soil has been depleted. But the amazing thing that happened is that in order to restore food nutritional value, we had to restore minerals. We had to restore thousands of species of microbes that are beneficial and work in symbiosis with plants. And we had to restore organic content that's been lost over the years. But when we did that, we found that not only did we restore nutritional value, but we improved the flavor of food. We evolved sensing not only we were able to sense nutritional value because of the flavor of food. As the nutritional value declined, the flavor of fruits and vegetables declined as well. So, but at the same time, when we restored all these elements of healthy soil, we found that plants produced much more, and we now sequester about 10 times more carbon in soil than other regenerative farming systems do that don't restore all the minerals that are necessary. So where all this intersects with climate change is very important, is that since really the loss of forests is a much more important driver of heating up the earth actually than the increase in CO2 in the atmosphere. And this isn't a big stretch to understand why, because on a really hot day, you go into a forest and it's cool there. And it's cool because the trees are evaporating water and keeping the trees cool. So as hundreds of millions of acres of forests are removed every few years all around the world is just getting hotter and hotter. So the connection to soil and what we're doing is that what is driving this deforestation, about 80% of deforestation is caused by the need for more food. As population grows and as food productivity declines, as soils become more degraded every year around the world, they produce less and less, and population is growing. So what humans have done for at least 10,000 years is just go cut down more forests because you have rich soil to grow food there. So we're getting to the point now where we've cut so much forest that we're really seeing the planet heating up more and more rapidly. And really the only way out of this trap is we have to be able to restore the productivity of soil so that we can grow more food on existing farmland so that we don't have to go cut more forests down. So that's what we're dedicated to. We have developed a way to restore soil to the degree that we can produce 400% or 500% more food per acre than the farmland produced before it was restored. So we also have found that by restoring soil for forests, that we can grow trees 200 to 300% faster and restore forests much more quickly. So that's the essence of what we're doing. We are the area that we're spending the most time now is there's about 1 million acres of mine land that has basically been pretty much abandoned, that has almost no productivity. It's not farmable. It doesn't grow forest. You can't grow timber. You can't really do anything commercial there. And we found that by restoring minerals and biology and organic matter, that we can create very productive farmland. So we're dedicated to, over the next few years, to restore as much of this 1 million acres as we can. And we're focused on cattle production because meat consumption per capita around the world is in the process of doubling. And so a lot of the deforestation, the Amazon, the Congo, and around the world is to produce more meat, to meet, people they crave a more nutrient-dense diet, which meat provides them. So by increasing meat production here in the U.S., we are aiming to, remove some of the demand so that forests in the Amazon and other places around the world are we can save them.
That is very good news. If you could just move your camera a touch, because we're having a little, that's much better. Thank you. We weren't able to see you fully. So, Ed, could you just take another moment and just describe something of the results you're getting with your work of the soil amendment so people can understand? Let me put it this way. I am also, in addition to A Better World, the president and CEO of an NGO called the Institute of Global Education. They are also one of the co-sponsors of this evening's Earth Day event, Earth Evening, I guess I should call it. And we are dedicated to the eradication of global hunger, poverty, and war. And I have seen the use of such things as regenerative farming as the means to do that. You have taken the fundamental aspects of regen ag and bumped it up to a whole other level with what you're doing far beyond biochar and the like. But if you could just speak, so our understanding, our feeling at IGE is that if we can increase food production, the family itself doing the farming will have enough food for themselves and plenty then for the marketplace, thereby feeding themselves, improving their own health and nutrition, and improving their pocketbook because they can now become somewhat prosperous because they have more material to sell. In that way, once they have built themselves this wonderful little community inside their own village, what have you, they're going to want to also preserve peace. So we see this as kind of a trifecta. And would you perhaps speak to that idea of a solution, but instead using your soil amendment?
Sure. When I was at the USDA and since doing research, so much focus by agriculture researchers is, looking at things like, well, if we add another 50 pounds of nitrogen fertilizer or potassium fertilizer or phosphorus fertilizer, can we produce more crop yield? And they, have a relatively limited array of interventions that they're using to try and increase crop yield. And of course, there's a lot of genetic modification going on, trying to improve the cultivars and how much food can be produced. When I started this whole effort of restoring nutrient value, I really was not focused on crop yield. But as a farmer, I had no idea of the potential of soil to produce the yields that we're producing, because I was just focused on nutritional value. But by focus on all the minerals, dozens of minerals that are essential for humans and plants, and restoring all of them, and restoring the thousands of species of microbes that have been lost through, the application of chemicals and farming over the years. By restoring all of them, we just had an explosion in yield, and now understand the potential of soil is so much greater than I ever knew as a farmer. So, for example, we did a project funded by the Grantham Foundation that, and it was monitored by a professor from Princeton, and we got 600% increase in yield on just a normal farm pasture. We were growing forage for animals and got 600% more. During a drought, the next year, we had a professor from the University of Vermont come down and measure the control areas and the area with our amendment. In that case, during a drought, we got a 300% increase in yield, 6 foot tall forage for animals with basically zero rain during a period of zero rain. We got 5 or 6 foot tall forage in this barren mine land. We've applied it to grapes, tomatoes, just many dozens of different crops, and even microgreens, we get an incredible yield with microgreens. So yes, an increase in yield means increased revenue for farmers, and it really changes their life. So many small farmers, have to get many of them have to have somebody in the family working full time to be able to pay the bills. And when soil can produce 400 or 500% more, then they don't have to do that. It has big
That's
impact.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's life-changing. You answered the question, and I so appreciate it. I was thinking about, farmers in Africa and India, but it goes for right here, our own country, as you have demonstrated. In fact, your microgreens have been sold at Whole Foods for a number of years as well, just to give you all a sense of the caliber of the quality of Ed's work. So,
yeah, I mean, the regenerative farm movement that's happening is essential because, it's critical to get the toxic chemicals out of our food and out of our environment.
Soil.
And that's happening with regenerative farming. And we've just taken it one step farther by restoring a whole array of minerals to a higher level, which then, on top of delivering cleaner food, it produces more food and more nutrient-dense food. And sequesters much more carbon, which, carbon stores water, it stores minerals, it takes CO2 out of the air. So
exactly. Keep up the good work, Ed Huling. I so appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. And
absolutely.
Good luck to us all. We are in this together.
We're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
As Jesse Jackson was known to say, we all may have taken different boats over here, but we're all in the same boat now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Ed, and keep
thank
up
you.
this excellent work for sure. And so we're going to move along to another wonderful woman who I recently interviewed, Judy Schwartz, who is a journalist. She's written a score of books, some on water. I met her through Eco Restoration Alliance. John Schull was on our Earth Day event a few years back, and I had the pleasure of meeting Judy then, and she's doing beautiful work in helping to educate people about the nature of water and its healing properties for the planet and restoration of our ecosystem. So, Judy, would you please come forward and chat with us?
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you to all who spoke before. And it's actually serendipitous that I would speak right after Ed, because I too came to water from soil. I had just written a book about soil, kind of like a soil's eye view of the world and of our many challenges, including the state of our food, which, as he said, has been very depleted because our soil has been depleted. Basically, I'd written a book about how soil. Anyway, basically, the theme of my book. Okay, I'm just quoting a phrase that's gone around, which is, the answer is soil. The question is irrelevant. So that was kind of the vibe of the book. So afterwards, I started thinking a lot about water, and it occurred to me that the way that we talk about water is that it's a matter of what does or doesn't come down from the sky, and no one mentioned land. So what I came to, my perspective was, we can't talk about water unless we're also talking about soil, just as we can't talk about soil unless we're also talking about water. And the perspective that I brought to the discussion is thinking about water not as a noun, but as a verb. So water not as a thing that there's this much water and you get some and I get some, and maybe we fight about what we're going to get. But what does water do? How does water work? And how understanding how water works will help us address our many global challenges, including biodiversity loss and climate change, and certainly our, the capacity to feed ourselves. So a little bit, Ed mentioned about, so how does water work? Looking at water processes, we can think about infiltration, which means is the water held in the soil? And as Ed mentioned, when you have carbon-rich soil, then you can hold on to water. Then you're not getting floods, you're not getting droughts, you're having water be effective and be able to grow plants and support trees and grow food and all of that. And
in short, be absorbed into the ground.
Exactly.
And that avoids the massive problem of water runoff, which allows even for desertification.
Right. So when water is held in the ground, you're not losing the water, you're not evaporating all the water and getting and heating up the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And you're holding on so that you can withstand more drought and keeping the earth hydrated so it's less prone to wildfire. So when we think about fire, we're not necessarily thinking about water held in the soil. So, this infiltration aspect, this infiltration as one of water's processes, it sounds kind of a little wonky, but I just remember being in Zimbabwe, where people were dependent on international food aid, and then they began to restore their land actually through holistically managing livestock, and that increased the water infiltration, and that meant for these people that instead of being able to grow food only 2.5 months of the year during the rainy season, they could grow food for 7 months of the year. And that meant the difference between being dependent on food aid and being able to be self-sufficient and have enough food that they can share with other villages. So another process that Ed also referred to was transpiration, the upward movement of water through plants. And this is a cooling mechanism. And that's really, really important because we have the capacity to work with the water cycle to enhance cooling. And then, of course, there's condensation, which is the formation of clouds and rain and dew. And I know people that work with dew and say that that is actually the most important water in the system because it's the most dependable.
So interesting, right? We all have our different understandings of the different stages of water and their relative importance to the entire ecosystem. I got an email just this morning from someone who was talking to me about primary water, and most people don't even know what it is. And I didn't until I learned a few years ago. I was at a conference called the Sacred Water Conference in Santa Barbara, and I interviewed a dowser. Most people don't even know what dowsing is anymore. But anyway, just to highlight and support what you're saying, which I think is so important. And what you're bringing up here, Judy, of the cooling mechanism. I mean, in a world of, as Robin Williams called it, global grilling, what more do we need than global cooling? And as you said, and our associate and colleague John Schul, that this is what you're describing, nature's cooling system.
Absolutely. Water, the phase changes of water are the main vehicle for the earth to manage its own temperature. So that's how nature works. So water conveys heat and moves an incredible amount of energy. And by how we manage land, by what we grow, by keeping forests intact, by ensuring that we don't have bare soil that then heats up, and so that even the microorganisms can't survive. So it becomes a vicious cycle and makes it even harder to revive that land. When we, by doing that, then we can help the water cycle, ensure that we have a functioning water cycle.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I so appreciate it. You know, I'm reminded of two things here. One is, do you know the publication, The Onion, that highly, wonderfully satirical magazine? Back in the G.W. Bush era, again, another wonderful administration that didn't believe in global warming as though it were a religion instead of science. But that aside, The Onion did a story, said G.W. Bush's answer to global warming is to have a national air conditioner. You know,
right.
Enormous air conditioner. If it's too hot outside, just put it inside.
But the point is that we do have not only a national air conditioner, but we have a global air conditioner.
A global one.
And it's on us to work with it instead of undermining it.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Judy Schwartz, for your good work and your contribution this evening. Very helpful and honestly very cooling. So I'm feeling better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jim, I actually, a good friend of ours, Carter, is going to go to biology class coming up, and his lovely sister, Carolyn. So I had texted you, but maybe you didn't see it. I
have seen it, Mitchell.
Oh, you have?
I could not unmute myself for some reason. Now I turned it off. I'm back on again.
Oh, all right. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to put them up first because he's dealing with such a short time frame, and then you'll follow them. How's that?
Wonderful.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jim. Well, the next two are a brother and sister who started a wonderful nonprofit called Meaningful Teens. And I had the pleasure of interviewing them and a few of their associates in Meaningful Teens just a few months back. And why? Because they are committed to cleaning up our ecosystem and rebalancing it and restoring it. And there are the youth that are following us and stepping up to the plate like nobody's business. And I was so impressed with what they're doing that I wanted the viewers and listeners at A Better World to hear what they have to say. And we have to do more and more to empower our young people to do that. So on that note, and I've gotten very friendly with her mother, by the way, Kristin, who's just wonderful and so helpful to A Better World as well. So Carter and Carolyn, please come forward and let's hear you.
Hi there. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm going to pass it to Carter, who's going to start.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mitchell, again for having us today.
Thank you.
I'm Carter, and this is my sister, Carolyn.
Hi there.
So please walk us through.
Yes. Well, today we plan to discuss 3 important topics that are important to me, as well as our environment: water, energy efficiency, and lastly, soil. So we are part of the Green Spark. It's a community of youth ambassadors who deploy innovative environmental technology solutions in their local communities.
We are from Lafayette, California, which is near UC Berkeley. And our connection to nature began when a wildfire broke out in the regional park, which is right across from our home. And during California's severe drought, which has really happened for both of our lives, our family had to evacuate twice due to encroaching wildfires. And then at the start of the pandemic, we co-founded Meaningful Teens, which is an international nonprofit that connects youth volunteers and retired teachers to tutor underserved elementary students in literacy and in math. And currently it's grown to over 5,000 members and continues to thrive worldwide. And through this work, we saw how deeply many teens cared about the environment and really wanted to take action. They wanted to get involved, which sparked our mission to create meaningful and hopeful pathways for youth to get involved. First, let's focus on water. So while tutoring youth in Oakland through Meaningful Teens, we learned from a student that the city is facing its own Flint, Michigan kind of like crisis with dangerously high levels of lead in school drinking water, which is, completely unacceptable.
And through fundraising efforts led by local teens, we provided an atmospheric water generator, otherwise known as an AWG, and produced an educational video explaining how it works and specifically highlighting the science behind condensation.
Here's the video about the project.
The schools in Oakland are really dealing with lead in the water. Access to healthy and fresh and clean water is a resource that everyone should have. I think it's kind of an undeniable right that you shouldn't be able to take away from anyone. The great thing about these AWG machines here is that it doesn't actually have to go through the pipes. AWG means atmospheric water generator, and it sucks out water through the air through condensation, and it filters that water in order to provide healthy and clean water.
Many schools in the East Bay are not getting access to clean water.
And by bringing this AWG to them, it'll really help them.
It's important for us to raise money for more AWGs.
Yeah, get the lead out the water.
We need your help.
The schools. Thank you guys for watching that. As well as through a local nonprofit, I also had the opportunity to meet aerospace engineer Jim Osugi, who will talk next. Jim introduced us to Kiko. It's an affordable volcanic charged pellet, and when combined with biochar and minerals, Kiko helps restore and clean waterways by stimulating the growth of beneficial microbes. And as you can see on the screen, here are some before and after photos showing the impact of this water remediation process. We traveled with Jim to Spirit Lake, Iowa to assess the effectiveness of Kiko in removing blue-green algae from several areas of the lake, which is polluted mainly by fertilizer runoff, both from nearby corn as well as soybean farms. And from our visit to Spirit Lake, Iowa, we created a documentary called The Value of Water with a videographer. The documentary showcases the residents of Spirit Lake, Iowa, and educates viewers about the history of the lake and how Kiko remediated the lake's water body. Near our home in San Ramon, California, lies Lake Annabelle, which you can see on the screen. It's managed by a lake services company, and they had achieved modest success. Still, the lake retained a faint, musty odor and lacked true clarity. With Jim's help, we introduced Kiko as a new treatment, and within 24 hours, the algae disappeared and the smell was gone. And as you can see, it was a dramatic transformation and also a powerful experience for our youth to witness and also be a part of. We did a short film for the United Nations COP16 convention in Cali, Colombia, showcasing Kiko's results.
Let's return now to how our work in highlighting energy efficiency.
So with a group of youth, we visited Blue Power. It's an off-grid power company in Gilroy, California. They are building a hybrid prototype that integrates lithium battery storage, solar panels, and wind turbines, so kind of all of the above. There's also a backup generator powered by renewable diesel for cloudy days. It is an impressive system, as Mitchell, who's also a collaborator, is well aware about. We also formed a partnership with Bridge Blocks. It's a sustainable technology company based in Alameda, California. We developed a curriculum on Bridge Blocks and sustainable energy to share with local charter schools, and explored Bridge Blocks' method for converting plastics into energy without harming the environment at all. Finally, let's get to soil. So these photos on the screen are from Tomcat Ranch in Pescadero, California, and my regenerative grazing cohort. Together, we visited regenerative ranches and learned from leading experts about managing rangelands in ways that support both the environment and the economy. And I'll actually be applying this knowledge this summer in East Timor, where I'll share what I've learned with government officials and local farmers. And lastly, we also visited All Power Labs in Berkeley, California, where they're developing a low-tar biochar that boosts plant growth, improves soil health, and even enhances carbon sequestration. Thank you all so much for listening and inviting us today. Happy Earth Day to everyone.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Carolyn and Carter, thank you so much for what you're doing. You're bringing your youth and vitality and inspiration forward in a way that's really, well, meaningful. So we really appreciate it. It feels like, people of our generation, we're getting a little bit of payoff that the education we've been trying to share for so long is really getting through to smart, sensitive, thoughtful people like you. So thank you and keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you. It's been an honor to be here with all of you. Amazing, amazing people.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye now. Wow. Isn't that something, Jim? And, it's amazing. It's amazing. Do you have any more light on possibly near where you are? Because you look like you're in a very dark room.
I am. I'm out in the back porch of a very dark room. Let's see if the light.
Oh,
let me hold on a second. Let me move over.
They won't let you inside.
Yeah, well, hold on a second. Let me go to.
While Jim is working on.
Let me sit by the mosquito burner. How about
while
this?
Jim is working on getting into the light, I'll just tell you again briefly that Jim Osugi is was born a scientist. He came out of the womb with a test tube in his hand, and same with all of his brothers. They're all physicists. And at least Jim, if not the others, also worked for NASA for a number of years. So he has taken his vast knowledge as a scientist, as a physicist, and applied that, as I was saying before, to water. And what does he know most? He knows mainly about frequencies. And that's what he did. And it happens that I do the same thing. So when we came together, it was sort of like Old Home Week. So, Jim, please share with us a little bit about Kiko technology and what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Mitchell, and welcome to Earth Day. And I've got to thank Carter and Carolyn for the little bit of an appetizer about Kiko technology. Let me peel the onion. And it's a lot of peeling to be done, folks. But I'll start this way here. Raised in Salinas, California, after university, joined my three brothers in the NASA aerospace program, specifically the Apollo program. And we're all involved in the program in different stages. My two older brothers were in the communications, tracking GPS, frequencies, satellite navigation. My other brother was patents in rocket cooling. I was on 5 Apollo missions to the moon, 13 to 17, and my background is hydrogen and oxygen, the second stage propulsion. And these are principles that were developed in the 1870 to the 1920 era by very brilliant scientists, Einstein, Shomolowski, Stokes, Fick, a whole bunch of them. And the challenge was applying the principles of energy, frequency, and vibration in rocket propulsion to energy, frequency, and vibration to water. It was a long journey, over 10 years of hard-earned research conducted in over 300 pilot studies, 10 years in 23 countries. So that's a quick background. So let me peel another layer of the onion here. The link between atmosphere, pollution, and water is linked. And I call it physics is linked to nature, and nature is physics. So let's start with the atmospheric one, because this will tie in quite directly with the work by Mr. Russ George. So he looks at CO2 for the oceans. I have concentrated on fresh water and brackish water, and there I concentrated on the other contaminants in the atmosphere, specifically carbonic acid, which most people identify as acid rain, and the unburnt hydrocarbons in the atmosphere. The reason why this is proliferated is because more people on the earth are using the same amount of water on the planet Earth. Let me expand on that. In 1900, there are about 1 billion people on Earth. Today, there's about maybe 8 billion. These 8 billion have used the same amount of water on planet Earth as when the dinosaurs roamed the Earth. In other words, water is finite. It has been finite for decades. What happens when same people use the water over and over? It becomes stressed. So the Kiko technology, the energy, and I'll define energy, frequency, I'll define frequency, and vibration, which I'll define, can actually unstress water. Like I said, water is finite. As it becomes stressed, and it's used for industrial, agricultural, commercial, as well as retention in lakes and rivers, its frequency and vibrational profile has decreased significantly.
Jim, when you say stressed, can we also think dead? That it's its quality of aliveness?
No, water's always alive. It's just stressed. It's just low energy.
Okay.
So
closer to dead.
Yeah, well, I think it's closer to being alive because we can reverse it quickly here with energy
that's
frequency.
Yeah.
Right. So I take a different viewpoint. So
yes.
I'll just go into the application. I don't want to dive too deep into the science, although it's very well documented. And some of the people in our group included Emoto from the Japan Water Institute, where you had the prelude here, Mitchell.
Yes, I've interviewed him as well.
Exactly. And I worked with the Japanese Water Institute.
Thank you, Kristin. Is his book she was showing.
Yeah. Come
Beautiful.
and talk to me, Kristin. I'll give you a lot more insights than that. A lot more. Anyway, I digress. So the Japan Water Institute, for over a 30-year period of time, analyzed over 3,000 or 4,000 water around the world, measuring the pH level of water. The pH good water should be around 7.0. Today, because of its acid rain, the thermal energy, the rain clouds, carbon in the air, dust in the air, the pH of rainfall is as low as 4.7, relatively acidic. And in most places in the industrial areas, Japan, Korea, China, Europe, particularly in the United States, acid rainfall is in the range of anywhere from 4.7 to 5.6 throughout North America. And because of that, water has become stressed. It just has a low energy level. Low energy level, and it's already been pointed out by people like Ed, that was a very good presentation there, Ed, is that if you energize that water and apply it to agriculture, it works hand in hand with regenerative farming. So people just think about soil. I have the flip side of it. If you use energized water, you'll have better seed germination. We've done a lot of work with crops, corn, soybeans, so forth, greenhouses. We've also applied the product into fisheries. We have reduced the mortality of fisheries by 40, 50, 60, 70%. Poultry, much better, much healthier, less feed to be used. Certainly, you can cut out all hormones. And now I'm here in America. I'll be here for several months here. And we started with Iowa. I'm now in Florida. We intend to restore impaired lakes in Florida. And these impaired lakes are basically, because of the low stress, is a cause for cyanobacteria, which is caused, as Carter mentioned, the runoff for nutrients is also overflow from septic waste disposals by accident, mining waste. It can be repaired, not in months, not in years. Cyanobacteria in about 24 hours to 72 hours. It almost seems to be a miracle. We've also had great success at Spirit Lake. This is where Carter, Kristin were there assisting us to do the video. We can actually neutralize a 40-year problem. The 40-year problem are invasive species called zebra mussels, which are costing taxpayers billions and billions of dollars of waste. And invasive vegetation that clog up boats, rivers, curly pondweed, hydrilla. These
Where
can
do
be rectified
where do
in a
the
couple of
mussels
years.
come from, Jim?
They are natural species from the Balkan, and over the last, I would say, close to 70, 80, 90 years, crossed the Atlantic, got into the Great Lakes, and they're attached to bolt holes. They're invasive because they're not native to North America. And what they do is they rob bodies of water, whether it's the Mississippi River, lakes, ponds, retention ponds. They rob the food from the lake. And as Russ mentioned, we work in the same dimension. This food are phytoplanktons and zooplanktons. They're invasive. So if you get rid of most of the zebra mussels, the phytoplankton, the zooplanktons, they return, and all of a sudden, the native species that are native to that region, I'm working in North America right now, the native to that region, wildlife is coming back in drones. Yellow perch, 2 or 3 inches, they're 15 to 18 inches in the areas we treated. Walleye has returned. Crabs, muscians, that's in the water. Above the water, bald eagles, which haven't been seen in particular areas of the lake for the last 34 years, they return within months after our treatment. Wild swans, geese that are migrating from the north to the south. I mean, we're talking thousands that come back to their resting places that they had inhabited, let's say 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And these are well documented because as part of our research, we talk to residents and we get a landscape of what happened historically. So it's a very concrete proof that if you can restore the energy, which is really kinetic energy by Einstein, If you can restore the frequency, and that frequency is driven by our pellets, Kiko pellets, it's the hydrogen frequency. It's not the oxygen frequency that does it. And the vibration is so super fast that what happens, that vibration traps, absorbs a frequency from the sunlight called far infrared, a frequency that's not studied very well. We have made that major breakthrough here. So we have a great contribution to agriculture, greenhouses, farmers. We can prevent scale in the hotel, eliminate it. We've eliminated Legionnaire's disease. So it shows you that not only energized water can increase performance of crops, commercial applications, industrial applications. The beauty of this is it reduces pathogen diseases. And I can give you hundreds of examples: citrus greening, cane borers, rodents, zebra mussels, hydrilla. Isn't that a good thing? And now, over time, if we get enough cooperation from decision makers, which actually starts with the EPA, the Clean Water Act, filters down to Department of Environmental Energy, the Corps of Engineers, which have a stranglehold on who can participate in cleaning up water and those who cannot. If they relent and use our energy, frequency, and vibration technology, they themselves will create vast amount of jobs. There won't be a decrease in jobs, let alone the impact it has on the health of people who drink that water, the health of people who eat the fish from these impaired water, correct? Mustians. So I'll conclude with this. Kiko has a major impact on a good saying we use in Asia: food is medicine and medicine food. And we can use nature and physics to drive this argument. That's kind of a quick rundown here. There's so much more detail than this, but I hope I've captured the essence of what nature can do if you apply it correctly to a natural, low-cost material, as Carter has once mentioned. So we have living testimony of young people. I want to educate the youth as well here.
That's beautiful.
Thank you very much, Mitchell.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend. Just so brilliant. Well, just solutions abound, everybody. It's just the way it is. And Jim Osugi is the carrier of one of the most vital of them all. So thanks again, Jim.
Thank you.
Well, we've been listening to a lot of wisdom here, which is fantastic. These people are wisdom keepers and inventors at the same time. So really, it's a moment for a little music again. This time, another friend of Kristin's and mine, Gary Malkin, Emmy Award winner, dominated the Hollywood scene for many, many years. And now we're honored to have him dominate. I'm kidding. That's not the word. Collaborate and partner with us here at A Better World and our Earth Day. Happy Earth Day, Gary.
Oh, Mitchell, thank you so much. I don't think dominate is a word that's appropriate, but thank you so much.
I was just having a little loose fun.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, as I told you, first of all, Kristin, wow. Thank you so much for that unbelievably beautiful music. I just can't wait to experience it again. And, until I have my musical setup, which Kristin is actually being a mentor for me on, a lot of my work has been done in major studios around the world. And having my own little studio at home is something I'm working on, but it's slower than I thought. So I don't have live music to provide. But you know me, Mitchell, I'm much more interested at the moment in what music can do to help awaken us to be part of the solution, right? And so I'm going to have a unique offering in comparison to what you've done thus far, because it's something that most of us don't want to talk about, but it's really, really important. And so what I'm going to do is I want to share something so for many of you might know or have heard of the organization, the Pachamama Alliance. And it was founded by or actually Lynn and Bill Twist say that they consider themselves foundees rather than founders because
Yes.
they were called by the indigenous people of one of the most biodiverse places on the planet, in the South Oriente of Ecuador, on the border of Ecuador and Peru. And they established, with partnership with the Pachamama, with the natives there, what Hawken calls the most powerful and effective NGO on the planet, certainly one of them. And Pachamama is an extraordinary story to tell. Well, so I met them along with Neil Rogan, the beloved writer, director, who was one of my closest friends, who we lost a couple of years ago. But he invited me to write the music for all the funding videos and then ultimately all the media for the Awakening the Dreamer Symposium. That's Awakening the Dreamer, Changing the Dream Symposium, which has touched millions of people in 35 countries. And frankly, it's one of the things I'm most proud about being a part of. And so during this program that I had to write music for, there was a section in this multi-part media experience that was a 4-hour experience that was designed to help you become part of the solution rather than the problem of climate change and the situation we're all in. Because their goal, as many of you might know, is to create a spiritually fulfilling, socially just, and I forgot the third one, presence in this world. I'm forgetting, I memorized it so many times. But there was this section when I was scoring this film about the extinction story. And basically, this is this story about the truth about we're in a mass extinction event. And when I came to this section to write the music, I'm a 40-year veteran of scoring TV, film, and commercials. And you know, the art of film scoring is the art of evoking an emotional experience that helps you lose sense of the parts, and everything becomes greater than the sum of the parts, and you're in the experience of what the director is trying to convey, right? And when I started to look at these images and realize, by the way, this is not what you're about to see, is something I created out of images myself. This is not the part of the film that I scored, but the music you're about to hear is what I came up with when it was the scene to talk about and look at images of these gorgeous creatures. And my responsibility was to write a piece of music that would evoke an experience of unspeakable grief when you realize that these beings, and some of them will never be here in some amount of years, different, some of them have already become extinct, right? And when I started writing this music, being the empath that I am, because I have been a film composer whose job is to bring forward the emotional underpinning of a scene, I couldn't write it without crying. I must have heard it 100 times, and I couldn't. And so as I'm crying, I'm writing this music. And what I noticed is the more spaciousness I provided, or that was coming through me, the more grief I was feeling. And over the years, and Mitchell, you know this about me, that one of the best things in the world that I've ever done is team up with Michael Stillwater and Doris, his wife, to create a work called Graceful Passages, A Companion for Living and Dying. And we went around the world asking people like Thich Nhat Hanh and Ram Dass and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, if you were going to die tomorrow, what would you say to the one person you most loved in this world? And we took the section in the interview that was the most higher self coming through, and then I edited it and scored it to an 80-piece orchestra in many cases, like it as if it were a film, right? Well, so this experience, what I realized was my job with Graceful Passages was to awaken the experience of death and our impermanence as a greater than cognitive understanding of the fact that we're going to disappear one day. Because when we all actually know in our bones, emotionally, spiritually, cognitively, somatically, that we're going to disappear one day and that we won't actually be here, and then we really get it, what I've noticed is it's a game changer. Because unless you're mentally unstable, You cannot regard life as anything but the most unbelievable preciousness, and the gratitude for the jewel of this life emerges as your direct experience, right? But what I noticed is Graceful Passages has touched 1 million people, and frankly, it should be listened to by hundreds of millions of people, if not everyone, because it awakens that sense of impermanence, right? But what I noticed is we humans, the Bhagavad Gita said 5,000 years ago, what is the most remarkable thing in all the world? And 5,000 years ago, it said the most remarkable thing in the world is everyone will die, but no one ever thinks it'll happen to them, right? But what I noticed was when you looked at the animals, somehow the filter of avoidance that wants to defer the experience of grief, which is itself medicinal to our awakening of that radical gratitude that will enable us to treat this planet with the precious, beautiful gratitude it deserves and the care that it deserves. It turns out that feeling the grief is the most powerful psychospiritual medicine to awaken a way for us each to take responsibility for our mother, right? And so if we can't feel the grief around people dying, because we have that's for people that deal with death and dying and the messy stuff called, dying and end of life, and I don't want to deal with any of that, right? But it sounds like, Gary Mitchell, you're probably saying, why are you turning to be something so morose? I know you wouldn't say that.
Not at all.
But here's the deal.
Not at all.
I'm going to invite everyone who's listening to this and looking at this as an opportunity to have your heart crack open. And remember, as Leonard Cohen said, ring the bells that still can ring. There is no perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Someone else said to me, the only whole heart is a broken heart. So let's break our hearts together. Let's allow our hearts to be broken for what is happening to the sacred beings on this planet, us included, but by allowing yourself to feel the grief of the loss of these beings in this mass extinction event that we find ourselves in, we've made ourselves one step closer to being a part of the solution that understands the sacredness of this beautiful blue planet that we're on. I'm going to share this now. If you let me share the screen, I put together this 2.5-minute video all right, let's take a deep breath. And remember, please just prepare yourself to get out of your head and let your whole body, mind, heart, soul be receptive. Here we go. And notice, if you can, how the music awakens your capacity to feel the grief. You hear the music?
Yes. Phenomenal, Gary.
Well, let's just take another 5 seconds of just allowing this to drop in for a moment. The finality of some of these beings that will never be here again. For whatever reason, Mitchell, I've been sensing my destiny is to be the one that can create unitive experiences by cracking our hearts open together. And what I've been saying now is that the greatest skill that we need at this time, with all of the things we're noticing, it's beautiful to hear all the solutions, and thank you so much. But in order for the death birth to be complete, and I mean literally the chrysalis story and the death birth Marx Hubbard talked about, we have to be present to the grief that is required to take responsibility for what it is that we have all co-created. And therefore, what I say is the greatest gift that you can give yourself, your family, and your loved ones, and this world is to allow yourself to feel the grief and to develop what I say is the greatest skills to learn right now to be part of the solution is to learn about what a hospice worker has to learn. We are all having to hospice the world that we've known in order to create the world that we're here to co-create together out of the rubble of what we've created and what is here to save and what is here to mourn. And if we can mourn together and be present with what's happening as if we were a hospice worker at the bedside of someone who's dying, you can be damn sure we're going to laugh our heads off when the joy and the gratitude and the ceiling is lifted up, because the deeper the capacity to feel the grief, the deeper our capacity to feel the joy and gratefulness for being alive. So I think that's an important part of this story that isn't talked about, composting our emotional experience to become as alive and wide of a range of emotional beings as we can, because music and immersive media is the universal language of human experience. Thank you for letting me contribute. There's nothing more important than to gather together for this purpose of loving our planet. And I celebrate you, Mitchell, and thank you so much for giving me the honor to share with such an august group of beautiful people. Thank you.
Gary Malkin, thank you so much. It's a true honor to have you, and your contribution just opens up the larger sphere of what it is I think we do all have to experience. And you put it all so beautifully and eloquently and heartfully, most important. So thank you, my dear friend. Well, unbelievably, we are now in the final throes, should I say death throes, the final throes of our evening together. We're not quite finished. I'm going to say a few comments, and then Mindahi Bastida, beautiful Toltec shaman from Mexico, will lead us in a final closing prayer. I want to just say that the musicians we had on tonight, Gary and Kristin, and the shamans that we've had on, bring us to another level, another dimension of our humanity. And this is just so vitally important for all the reasons that Kristin's beautiful music, the way it titillated us in deep, deep ways, the way Gary's music and video together brought us to a level of appreciating the sacred of our beautiful animal kingdom, which we have so little time in our busy urban lives to spend time with, and the message of our life and death. In a conversation I recently did have with Gary, I spoke of a quote that I know has been attributed to Eckhart Tolle, which is that life is not the opposite of death, but birth is the opposite of death. And in that way, we can sense and feel the circularity, if you will, of the process and that we are all participating in it. And yet, while we're here doing what we're doing, there is, of course, the creation and the destruction cycles that we know from the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita and all of the ancient wisdom traditions. And during the creation period, of which the people, the speakers tonight, the young teenagers tonight are all part of a creative creation cycle, because we're watching what's happening around us. There's a lot of death and destruction, a lot of institutions collapsing. And while that's happening, there will be another upswing. And I would say that we, our speakers, all of them, all of us are part of that upswing. And doggone it, we're going to do it till our last dying breath. So on that note, I want to just thank everybody for your participation and contribution to the whole of this evening of honoring Earth Day, of honoring Earth Mother, Pachamama, Gaia, and from our hearts. This is where we're coming from. This is our lives. This isn't like a one-night stand. This is an all-life stand. And that's where we're coming from. So it's so important to me to thank each and every one of you who participated tonight to create a world of solutions and a world of greater vitality that hopefully we can take on into our daily lives. So on that note, I'd like to welcome Mindahi Bastida to join us for a final blessing and prayer.
Gisenwa chikwada gisenwa chiku. Dime Nuna nuwa na yoho nyu. Gisenwa chi tatahiadi. Gisenwa chi mashikenya. Gisenwa chi that TV. To this direction of the Father Son, we salute sacred fire as an element of bringing us the energy for all beings that exist in this beautiful planet, in this beautiful Mother Earth. We salute the feather serpent. And in between, we salute the upcoming new dawn, because we are crossing these difficult times, this time and space that we are witnessing for the cleansing, for the coming back home. To the sacred fire, the Kamadiki, Kamadiki. Now to the south, na yoho yo. To the direction of the seeds, the direction of the soils, the direction of the Congo, the direction of the Amazon, the Lacandona, and all the jungles that exist in the south. And the connection that we have with mystery of the beauty of the soils, the colors, and the flourishing life that emerges from all manifestations. And also to the beings in the sea and the great ice in the south. And all beautiful thinking, all beautiful manifestations of sacred sites, and all peoples who are carrying out the work so life can flourish again and again. Na yoho new to the west. Oshigintini, Chikwada, Chiku, Tikmewa, Daxa, Sukui Hira, Sukui Kwa, Tikmewa, Dine Kyon Kiki, Chalamui, Chalashudi, to the place of mystery, to the place of the hidden waters, the rivers in the sky, the rivers underneath, the great seas, the creeks, all bodies of the waters, and the waters from the volcanoes, the waters that are in our veins, and the waters that are in the air and in the universe. Now to the north. Now, yoho, you. To this beautiful direction, to the ice wisdom, to the sacred animals, sacred plants, to the eagle, to the polar bear, and all that exists in the north, the reindeers. All that exists in the north, grandma, spider. So we can remember that we are united here and there. And to the mushroom people that tell us how to survive in difficult times. So we can remember who we are as human species once again. We can remember that we got big family as Mother Earth got big family. We are the children. Mother Earth got also big family. So we appreciate that in this direction. Now to the sky. Na yoho you. Dokero mektenuzaki, dokero mektenumui, kamadi makimu, kamadi makitadi mewa. Tine kon kichichalamui shalashuri. Tioka maheti. To the heart of the sky, to the heart of Maheti. We salute all constellations, all different universes, the metaverse. We salute where we came from. Especially we salute the Pleiades and also the leading star, that's our Venus, and all the planets in this beautiful family. We salute the mystery from the dark to the light. Now, yoho, you to Mother Earth. Now, yoho, you. Nangingo, 50 shimo ikipupu. Nangingo, 50 shimo ikipupu. Nangingo, 50 shimo ikipupu. Oh, ho, ho, ho. To Mother Earth, to stand up with us, the ones who loves you, the ones who give care about you, for the beauty that you represent, for all who you are, for all that you give us. And in reciprocity, we are here, once again learning how to live in harmony in reciprocity, in responsibility, beyond respect. How to come back for this rare generation, for this reconnection, for this remembrance, back home, back home, back home. Forgive us for all what we have caused, the wrongdoings. Mother Earth, we're here once again. Remind us to be humble. Remind us to be responsible for our acts, for who we are, for the family, for the territories, for the nations, for the bioregions, for the biocultural territories. Remind us to be humble once again. Now, the message is that we are here trying to reconnect and connect with ourselves, with like-minded and heart feeling, heart connection, but also energy connection. This is the time to remember that technology is not going to save us, but our connection with this beautiful planet, with this beautiful universe. So that's why we honor this Mother Earth. That's why we have to think beautifully and bring clean ideas to action. Once again, we are a human family, but we got more relatives than we think. Relatives that we cannot see, that they are around us. And we are in debt. We have to pay back. This is the time, and the time is now. Now to your hearts and to your families for the blessings of who you are, what you do in the positive, in the harmony with ourselves, in the balance, so we can bring the joy, the happiness through dances, through music, through manifestation of arts and the manifestations of ancestral wisdom. Please touch your heart so you can be blessed. Na, yoho, nyum. Happy Earth, happy Earth, happy Earth. Come on in. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Mindahi. So appreciate it. So beautiful. That was a perfect ending to our evening together. So, from the depths of my heart and appreciation and respect for all of you, Mindahi, all of you, Jill, Gary, Kristin, all of our speakers, thanks for making this a very special event. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. Good night, all.